This is one that I think I want fresh.
Yeah. There is a lot going on in an hour and 37 minutes.
Yeah, not saying I would forget it all or whatever, but
yeah.
I watched this. Well, whatever. We'll get into it. I don't know how to start the podcast, as you know, so it'll either be whatever that we keep, or something along the lines of "Welcome to Late to the Movies." My name's Ben Holton. This is a podcast where my friends and I get to fill in our movie blind spots. Each week, we'll pick a film that either I or a guest hadn't seen before, and really should have by now. This week, continuing Sam Neilloween. This is one where he gets the "and" at the end of the title sequence, so you know it's important. That counts as starring. A whole month of films starring Sam Neill, like Daybreakers. This one's Daybreakers. From the Spierig Brothers, I believe. Most notable for their 2014 film Predestination?
Let me check that.
Also starring Ethan Hawke. Not also starring Sam Neill. Whatever. It's one of those.
Predestination.
Other people are in that too. Again, I don't know these guys that well, but they have pretty great casts in a lot of these films.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. This week, left to right across your podcast, Al, we got Patrick.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. Welcome. You're wearing your Mets jersey.
Yeah.
You're in the spirit of things.
Yeah.
It's like 40 degrees every day and baseball's happening, so it feels like fall all of a sudden.
It does, except we're going to have a random 70-degree day somewhere in there, but that's okay.
Yeah, we got it. Hopefully it's on Halloween for everyone out there at night.
Yeah, last year was cold on Halloween.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. Okay, so I was going to ask if you've seen anything good recently, but are you going to do trick-or-treating for Halloween, or is it too early?
Too early.
A little too early.
Too early for a 2.5-month-old.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll be able to digest the candy just yet, but we will be handing out candy.
Okay,
we get a lot of kids in our neighborhood, so
that's good.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I've only been here since the summer. I assume there's not a lot of kids around, but I don't want them to be disappointed.
I don't know. There might be some kids that walk around here.
In that line of questioning, though, have you seen anything good recently, and has it been spooky?
So I have a 2-month-old now, and watching TV and movies has become exponentially difficult. But I have been watching. My dad has cable, and I have his login for cable, so I feel like I'm living back in my house growing up and watching cable network TV. And AMC has been doing Fright Fest, so there's been a heavy rotation of horror films, which has been nice. They had a John Carpenter day where they just kind of plowed through a bunch of John Carpenter classics. I probably watched The Thing about 3 times now.
Yeah, nice.
Sci-fi has some movies on. They seem to have a Leprechaun franchise movie on every day of the week. So I've watched Leprechaun in the Hood and
the space one, did you watch?
No, Leprechaun in the Hood 2 as well. And the original Leprechaun.
Yeah.
What else?
And that is Warwick Davis, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good for him.
Yeah.
Get those residuals.
For sure. And I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but today was Rob Zombie's Halloween, which I've never seen before. I was caught the kind of last half of it.
Yeah, that's
not good.
I've never seen it. I know the frame is more like Michael Myers' family's white trash, and that's why he kills people or something.
It's a Rob Zombie movie.
So someone's family's white trash, and that's why they kill people.
And his wife's in it.
Oh, well, yeah, you gotta.
And what else? Watching a lot of King of the Hill.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah. It's been a minute for me.
Yeah. It's on Hulu. So it's been like a good, whether it's catching on Adult Swim or watch an episode on Hulu or so.
Yeah.
And then just sports time, Mets, Sabres, Bills from Buffalo. So it's kind of like elite sports season right now, October.
Yeah. Are you a basketball guy at all?
I'm a big Knicks fan.
Knicks fan.
So,
okay. Hey, opening night.
I know.
That'll be fun.
So it'll be very fun. So it'll be kind of like that's taking up a lot of time. I'm trying to think of what other kind of movies I've watched. Total Recall has been on TV all the time. I mean, these are movies I've seen, but I love a lot of Schwarzenegger movies. Still dominates cable TV. It's wild.
I think anytime I hadn't ever actually put this together, but I feel like anytime we've done an Arnold movie, I've been like, oh yeah, this one was on TNT at 2 p.m. every Tuesday growing up or something.
Dude,
like
still on TNT every Tuesday
Yep.
at 2 p.m.
That
You know,
is-
whether it's, I watched Terminator 2 like 4 times in the last
Yep.
2 months.
I think like TNT, TBS, all those channels, their lifeblood is
Yeah.
like Arnold in the 80s and 90s.
BBC America has had a lot of Schwarzenegger movies on.
Okay. Huh.
So yeah, nothing. I've not been able to see newer movies, which kind of bummed me out. I wanted to see Substance. I wanted to see Alien Romulus. Haven't been able to. That kind of stinks.
That puts things in perspective because I've also not been able to see new movies that much recently, and I don't know that I'm as busy. I probably have had
Different sort of
opportunities.
busy. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I've had chances, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, well. That is what it is. I haven't actually... this is not that I'm being, derelict in my movie watching duties, but I just recorded the last episode pretty recently, so I haven't watched a new movie since then, but it has been very heavy spooky season.
Yeah.
Watched 3 of the Insidious movies, watched The Conjuring, getting like the James Wan 2010s horror canon.
Ooh, good. God bless you.
Yeah.
I'm not a
Might-
fan of James Wan.
Might revisit Malignant,
Yeah. Didn't like that one either.
Aquaman.
That's
all-
the spookiest one of them
that's
all.
the spookiest one. It made $1 billion. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
for
That
the-
is terrible.
for the future of movies. So yeah, that's been about it. So I've been in this weird Sam Neill headspace for a bit now.
It's a good headspace to be in.
It's a good headspace. It's bleeding into my reality in a way. My Halloween costume is just going to be Sam Neill character.
Nice. Which one do you know?
Alan Grant from Jurassic Park.
Nice.
He has
Got a nice hat. Got a
right.
vest.
He has extremely distinct, though very common clothing items, so they
That's
were all
great.
pretty easy to buy on Amazon.
Yeah.
So now I have pleated khakis
Nice.
that I can just sort of keep using.
Nice. Dickies?
Yep,
Yeah, hell yeah.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I bought his entire wardrobe. I don't think a single piece of clothing was more than like $15 on Amazon.
Awesome.
The pants were like 30, but I
Yeah.
got like actually.
If you really wanted to commit to it, you would go to REI and spend $500 on his outfit.
I would, yeah, I could. Yeah, I was looking. I didn't buy. He has sort of a multi-tool sheath on his belt,
Okay.
and those are like actually expensive
Yeah.
because they don't really make cheap versions of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I just won't use that. I don't think anyone will notice.
Yeah. I forgot to mention too, I did watch the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix with my dad. He came to visit.
Interesting. That came up on an unreleased, but by the time this episode comes out, the previous episode of this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What'd you think?
So I grew up in a big wrestling household.
Yeah.
My brother is still into wrestling. And my brother talks to me as if I'm still into wrestling, and I've not watched it in probably a decade at this point. So I kind of know about it, everything that went over. But the funniest part was like watching it with my dad, who, we lived in a very permissive household with television, little to no oversight over what we watched, and watching it with him and him being like, I don't remember that, like, oh, you don't remember Trish Stratus being told to strip down and walk around the ring on all fours, bark like a dog? I remember that, Dad.
That was a formative experience.
I recall that. Yeah, and it was. I mean, it was good. As it's like one of those documentary limited series things. It's also totally hilarious that like Raw has an exclusive deal on Netflix, and Netflix just released this thing. Like, dubious in the least.
Yeah.
The whole kind of like, we know we're awful. We know this product is awful, but look forward to Raw exclusively on Netflix in 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. My cousin said they sort of soft pedaled the more recent Vince McMahon revelations.
Yeah. They really could have went into a lot more detail than they did.
Yeah, that's what he said. But I think it's like a Bill Simmons produced thing, and they just kind of wanted to make a thing, and that happened while they were already making it.
I imagine they wanted to make a thing to like promote the deal Netflix had.
Yeah.
with WWE, and then this all happened during its production. So
That's tough.
yeah,
It's tough.
highlight Stephanie McMahon when like Attitude Era happening and Mike Tyson is signed, and Stephanie McMahon was like, well, we didn't sign him till the rape allegations happened after we signed him, right? And the producer's like, no, they were occurring while you signed him. That's like,
You just didn't care at the
you
time.
just didn't care, and this is how this works, right?
Yeah.
Your willful ignorance.
Yeah. Willful ignorance is a good, probably a better subtitle for a Vince McMahon documentary.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's sorry, I forgot to mention I watched that.
That's the spookiest thing that you've covered so far.
Oh Jesus, you're telling me.
Okay, well let's get into it. Yeah, we got time. Let's get into it.
Yeah, of course.
I had not seen this movie before.
I have not seen it either.
Until turning it on AMC's website, which was complete with removing all the swear words and commercial breaks. Not that it went to actual ad breaks, but the music would stop, the screen would go black for a few seconds, and then it would come back.
Play the ad in your mind.
Play the ad in your mind. Yeah, this was me sitting down to watch. It was the first time I think I actually locked into my brain the title of the film.
Yeah.
So
have you seen it before then?
No, I hadn't seen it before. Just
okay.
Like, was it not Daywalkers? That's a different vampire thing.
That's a Blade thing.
But
I wanted to talk about Blade in relationship to this movie.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But okay, so neither of us had seen it before. Do you feel confident in a 1-minute plot summary?
Sure. I'll do my best to remember all the details. There's a lot jammed in this movie in an hour and 37 minutes. Yeah. It does a good job, I think, of like creating a world. Might be a little bit too ambitious for how short it is, but essentially 2009, there's vampires on Earth that overtake the human race slowly. We're 10 years later, so we're in 2019. The vampires have succeeded in their kind of overtaking of humans, and there is a small amount of humans left that are being farmed, and the blood supply is rapidly running out for the vampire population. So the vampires are trying to figure out how to come up with a blood alternative. Enter Ethan Hawke, who plays Ed. Ed is a hematologist who's trying to develop a vampire hematologist, trying to develop this blood alternative for Sam Neill, our boy's company, which is called Blomberg.
Yeah, it's something like Blomberg.
Is it Blomberg?
It's something like Blomberg.
Sorry. I'll pull it up real quick. It may
not be Blomberg.
It's
Bromley Marks.
Bromley Marks. Sorry. So So Sam Neill plays Charles Bromley. Bromley Marks is a human blood supplier company trying to also find that blood alternative.
Yeah.
So that's setting the stage. Those are two main characters, Ed and Bromley. And Ed is really kind of sympathetic to the humans, doesn't want to see them become extinct. He's kind of taken this stance to not drink human blood. There's also this development, though, that vampires that are not drinking blood are having rapid degeneration into kind of Nosferatu-like vampire. So they get pointed ears, they get wings, they get kind of feral, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that is kind of within the first 30 minutes or so. Ed gets in a car accident. Car accident is with these humans. It's this woman and this man and these three other humans. He protects them. She ends up thinking, leaving. We're then introduced to Ed's brother. Ed's brother is in the vampire army. And then we move into kind of where things kind of get even bigger and more complex in the world. Eventually, Ed links up with the humans because she needs to recruit vampires that want to help the humans, and identifies Ed as one of those individuals. We also learn in the meantime that Charles Bromley's daughter ran away when Charles Bromley decided to become a vampire. That becomes important because she ends up reconnecting with him via a kind of ambush on a caravan of humans that are going to be taken to the safe house. While that's going on, we're also introduced to Willem Dafoe, who plays kind of this scrappy Southern guy named Elvis, who's kind of interesting.
Yes.
Former vampire.
He's named Elvis. His last name's Cormac. The next 40 minutes are a road movie.
Yeah. So yeah, he kind of gives his lore, his backstory, which includes being a vampire who created the kind of technology to have day driving for vampires. He got in an accident, went through the window.
That sequence isn't the best execution of
No, it's not. But he goes through the window, gets on fire, falls in water, and then survives. And then he's human.
Yep.
Crazy. So this is kind of the key to what Ed and Elvis and I forget the actress's character's name in this. Lisa? Audrey? Sorry.
Yep.
Is it Audrey?
Audrey.
Okay. What Elvis, Audrey, and Ed's kind of journey is, which is to find how exactly Willem Dafoe / Elvis was able to survive this, because this could be the key to unlocking, a cure, so to speak.
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going? There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot.
And then they do?
And then they do, but
not in the way they intended through science.
But Ed is
trial and error.
Yeah. And Ed is betrayed by his brother. Yeah. His brother kind of then atones for that later in the movie. Mm-hmm. Sam Neill, Bromley is reunited with his daughter. He has
God, yeah, that hasn't even happened yet.
He has Ed's brother turn her. She refuses to drink blood. Instead, kind of like drinks her own blood, which turns out to be poison to vampires. So she goes through this rapid degeneration towards kind of like Peter in What We Do in the Shadows sort of vampire. And then, there's kind of a last hurrah where Ed goes back to the corporation with this cure. He's betrayed by the scientist he worked with. There's a lot of betrayal.
There's a lot of betrayal.
Deceit. Like I said, there's a lot in this movie for an hour and 37 minutes.
Yeah. There's
not all unsatisfying, but there's a lot.
The sun comes up at the end. All our heroes are able to stand in it.
Yeah.
Most people are dead.
Yeah.
Because they trick them into becoming human and then they immediately die.
Yeah. Drinking human blood of a former vampire, newly human blood of a former vampire is the cure.
That does set up what I think is actually an inventive sequence later where there's like the sort of the ripple effect of like 5 people to one turned person, then turning human and then like paying it forward, so to speak, but they're all being murdered as it happens.
Yeah, this is like
it's a pretty good sequence.
Yeah, it's like Dread, the Dread movie sort of action sequence, epidemiology kind of in one sort of short sequence.
You mentioned there's a lot stuffed into a small box in this one.
Yeah.
They pack a lot into this suitcase. I mentioned road movie. It's a bit of that, but there's also Ethan Hawke joined because he doesn't like genre movies, but he saw this as more of an allegory about a man grappling with dwindling natural resources. And
also this bullshit. He doesn't like genre movies. He's been in quite a few sci-fi movies.
I think he's changed his mind on that, especially in recent years.
Yeah.
This is 2009, but I guess in the 15 years since, he's made a lot.
Yeah.
This is pre-Insidious Black Phone. I mean, he likes.
He's also in Gattaca before this.
Yeah, right. This feels like the science-y part.
The Predestination looks like a sci-fi movie
For
that
sure.
he was in with them.
But yeah, I guess there's a thing about natural resources and humanity's complicity and, them dwindling. There's very stark Holocaust allegory all of a sudden in Holocaust imagery.
I hadn't thought of that.
I did.
Yeah.
the name thing, I didn't even think of. They're doing like a Bloomberg thing with Sam Neill.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't even connected that.
Yeah.
But sure, there's a conspiracy thriller aspect to it. To Ethan Hawke's credit, he said this didn't feel like other just straight up horror B, sci-fi horror movies. And he's right. It's doing a lot and it's really ambitious. And I appreciate that. I don't think it nails the landing on a lot of this. But I thought I was surprised at how much they were almost getting to a lot of things. That sounds like such faint praise, but I actually did think it was pretty cool what they were trying to do with a lot of it.
Agreed. Yeah. I thought of like, one thing I didn't mention too that's been on TV a lot is Blade and Blade 2.
Yeah.
So I've watched those recently, which is why I wanted to bring them up. But I thought about like, I do appreciate as well in kind of like a time, if you look at like 2009, say when this movie came out, to 2015, when I'm sure the Twilight movies came out within that time frame, right? They're not doing sexy vampires at any way, shape, or form. They're kind of doing, like you said, and like Ethan Hawke said, this kind of using vampires as an allegory.
Yeah.
Which I think Blade 2 really kind of gets similar as well. It's Guillermo del Toro directed one.
Yeah. This is doing like most versions of vampires. It's sort of like trying to do all of them almost. Not just like physically, but also a lot of the different ways vampires have been used as metaphor, aside from being sexy.
Yeah, no.
That's the only one they don't really touch in this.
Which is interesting, but it's also like it's. I mean, to hit the nail on the head with the allegory, it's like they're vampires in the sense of like you would call a vampire somebody who sucks energy or. Mm-hmm. They're doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
There's a class thing,
for sure,
very much
so. And
even within the vampires, never mind vampires versus humans.
Yeah. And so I admire the ambition of the movie. I don't admire the special effects of the movie.
I will say the CGI is terrible. The makeup stuff pretty good.
Yes. The kind
creature effects.
Whatever they call, I forget what they call the degenerative vampires. They have a separate name for them.
Oh yeah, they have some name for it, but
they looked really cool.
That's a cool concept of as they starve, if you don't have blood for long enough, you turn into like a real bat, like Nosferatu style, like you said, like real messed up looking dude. And that's a cool concept.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool concepts in this movie. And there are good actors who, like, I think Ethan Hawke does a great job as the lead in this.
Yeah. It's also going for kind of a noir thing, I think.
Yeah, kind of like a mid-century.
I don't think Ethan Hawke has dialogue in the first like 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's got this kind of like mid-century Art Deco, almost like Darwin Cook Batman vibe.
Yes. It does.
And which I liked, but I also was a little puzzled by sometimes.
Yes. The tone was interesting. I think I liked the tone too, that it sort of stays on like a simmer. And it has that kind of like noirish distance almost. But the last 5 minutes, a lot of people do explode. So
they do. I also feel like, as much as I love Willem Dafoe, I feel like it kind of, the introduction to Willem Dafoe and his character and that kind of journey that Ed goes on maybe detracted a little bit from the movie. For me at least.
It's a different flavor that doesn't mix as well.
We're so like, because we're so noir in the city.
Yeah.
And the humans are in the outskirts, kind of rural, at the winery that Audrey's family owned, right? So there's this kind of like, we're immediately in this more like, like California Napa Valley sort of desert setting. And the dichotomy of that is really strong and stark. And you almost like, for me at least, like, it's so set in trying to have that mid-century or even earlier Art Deco tone of the city and the kind of like industrial town village that he lives in, which is kind of like almost like if you've watched Severance, almost like that. It's like a company town, right?
Yeah.
Like all the houses look the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
They're kind of sleek. It's this gated community thing.
But that whole environment's been designed around everyone here is a vampire.
And then you kind of go immediately. You go immediately to the outskirts, the rural places, where what I initially got the instinct was going to happen is like they're kind of somehow part of the subwalk thing, or the opposite of the subwalk, which is like the kind of tunnel system that they've created to walk around during the daytime.
Yeah,
that didn't become as big of a part of the story as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And instead they opted for that.
The sub vampires. I liked that they called them the Subsiders. I thought that was a fun name.
Yes. Yeah. Subsiders. That's the name I was looking for. But yeah, also one other thing I need to bring up, adding to the deco kind of vibes, is the Chrysler, who must have given a lot of money to be in this movie.
Yes.
Because they're all over this film as a product placement. In addition to Pontiac and Mustang, like I don't know what these brothers have with big automobile, but like they were presumably banking a part of this film. It was interesting.
A Lionsgate film or something. There's a
Lionsgate.
Yeah, there's a weird high class, low class thing going on just in the production of it. Like,
yes,
I mean Ethan Hawke and Willem Dafoe are sort of in more gettable moments there, but they're still names.
Yes.
But then you have these guys that were sort of coming off of just a thing. They wrote the movie too. The directors, the Spierig Brothers, but not really like a name. It has a lot of the filming feels very like shot in Eastern Europe on the cheap for Sci-Fi Channel feel to it.
Yeah.
But still
I would say it's a little bit more elevated than that, but it feels like it reminds me of John Carpenter's Vampires a bit, like kind of low production.
Yep. James Woods there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it gave me that feel like, okay, this is an independent movie.
Yes.
That's with recognizable names.
Yeah.
Whether for vampires, it's Carpenter, it's James Woods, it's Billy Baldwin, you know what I mean? Like there's kind of names that are in it that are part of it. And at the same time, I also pair it with like the underworld.
Yes.
Right.
I was thinking underworld too, because there the vampires are like super rich.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the production quality of underworld, but it's striving for that. I felt like,
yeah. It's they weren't always letting their limitations dictate what they tried to do, which I appreciate.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh God, I was going to spin off of that somehow, but oh well. I'm not going to now. I liked the vibe. Yeah, I said tone before, which is the correct word, but I'll completely invalidate my own opinion and just say the vibe was good.
Yeah, the look of the film was interesting.
Yeah. And you're right, it is very desaturated in the city, very like corporate. Everyone's wearing a suit all the time, and then in the outskirts, that shot of the house on the hill just looked to me almost exactly like the cover art of Days of Heaven by Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a different vibe all of a sudden. I know it's not exactly like that, but that's just what was invoking in my mind.
Yeah, which I get they want to do this kind of dichotomy, right? I mean, even when you're introduced to Elvis, you're introduced to him under this like huge tree that's almost like...
Trees are old or whatever.
Some say they're 4,000 years old. That's not his accent. He's kind of doing this like Southern accent thing that
it comes and goes.
Yeah, it does definitely. But like I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that said, I liked it.
I liked it. I think it could have been a lot tighter, but I think there is a lot for us to talk about in terms like they want you to talk about it.
Yeah,
which I appreciate.
Yeah, well, I think I don't think you're wrong that the hero's journey out in the outskirts maybe is the thing to prune, I guess.
I think it loses his...
Or if that's a thing that could have happened in the city, maybe.
Yeah. Or if that's a thing that could have happened... Yeah, whether it's in the city or...
If it was more,
I don't know.
I think I maybe wanted it to be more like The Matrix, and just like we're going underground. We're not going out. We're just getting under this stuff.
Yeah. There's also like it's hard. I think part of what the limitation of how vast they want the world to be, despite their budget, is that you're given allusions to this happening all over the world. You hear like BBC, London news. You hear about the Middle East.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But like clearly this is like not a regional or nationalistic setup. This is like big, like the vampire race is run by truly run by multinational corporations, right? This is the allegory that they're saying that they control the main. It's like Tank Girl, right? Like, what if you control the water in the drought times? Like who controls the blood in the vampire days, right? And I think in that sense,
I think Brady would be sad if I didn't mention in Cyberpunk, governments get replaced by big corporations.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's cool, but I think that's what makes that transition so harsh, because it's like surely this large corporation would have like been able to totally squash every and any resistance at this point. And also like you could drive a Pontiac Thunderbird or Firebird through the building. Like, okay, that doesn't seem very like fortified in any way.
I think it's also a bit held back by the good guys needing to win, and I considering it's for an actual studio by relatively no-name writer-directors, maybe they didn't want that to happen. Not saying I don't even know if that's the case, but if they wanted it to go a different way, I'm sure they would have been told, no, we need this to make money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think a thing that John Carpenter, who you mentioned this time, I'm not guilty of bringing him up first this time, though I would have eventually. I think he's really good at is having things where the heroes don't necessarily win or stay alive, but there is still a different version of victory, right?
Yeah, like Prince of Darkness, right? Like he undercuts maybe the idea that they might have gotten out of it by ending with the dream sequence again, right? Like, one could argue that like maybe just because some vampires have turned back to human, like it's going to be an extended period of time before this takes effect. And if the vampires turn human and then they're immediately killed by the other vampires, maybe nobody survives because they're so ravenous towards humans.
Yeah. What's the magic number? Like, what's the ratio to how many more humans there needs to be than vampires?
Yeah. What's the N?
For them to not kill people before they turn,
So they're but they don't hit. They're not focusing on that. They're focusing on them like walking out into the daylight.
Yes. We need Wilfred Brimley in front of a computer saying how many days until everyone in the world is dead.
Yes. Yeah, we desperately need that computer sequence.
Fully in Carpenter brain now. That's from The Thing if you haven't seen it. I was also thinking if They Live, like Roddy Piper probably didn't want it to end the way it ended, but humanity's better off for his actions.
Then he just said, fuck it.
That's what it really is I love an ending where the hero says, you know what, fuck it.
Yeah, no.
The best outcome is I might be going down, but you will go down harder.
Yeah.
Arguable if that's what happens in The Thing.
Oh, they all die in The Thing. That's not a question.
Oh, they definitely all die, but have they succeeded in containing the Thing?
Oh, no.
Yeah, definitely not.
The cold has contained The Thing.
Yeah, until a rescue crew comes.
Until Ludacris goes and drinks the glacier water.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that.
No. It's like it was in the cadence of a joke, so I was like,
he went to go drink some glacier water, and then immediately a story after is like
he got thinged.
The story is just like 4,000-year-old bacteria found in glacier water. That's like, and then
possibly from space.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Poor Ludacris.
Hey.
Yeah.
He's still alive. For now. But yeah.
Ludacris is the warmest place to hide, maybe.
Yeah. No, I feel like yeah, the big world, the reluctance to give up the big world for the small budget is admirable, but I don't know if the movie is any better off for it.
I agree. I think it's weird because it's not a fully indie movie, so you can't like hold them to that so much, but it would be interesting. Like, I kind of want to watch something else by these guys. Like, I kind of want to watch the movie that got them this.
Yeah.
You know? Because I mean, why not just bring it back to Carpenter again? Like what he does with Halloween that kicks off, and I mean, to a lesser successful extent, Dark Star, that kicks off a career. It's like, yeah, they weren't like,
I mean, Assault on Precinct 13 and then Halloween. Yeah. And so like, yeah,
right. All just like, we got this one location, we have a few people, we're going to write a good story. We're not, you know, and we're going to keep it to what we've got. We're not going to make you wonder about what's missing here.
Yeah. And it's just, I guess, like totally different time of filmmaker, right? Where Carpenter is like, you know, his biggest influences are John Ford and Howard Hawks and you know,
just still never got to make
Hitchcock.
That Western.
I mean, he did. Vampires is a Western.
Yeah.
I would argue The Thing is a Western as well. It's in the desert.
Yep.
It's just a
I think so
desert.
would Quentin Tarantino, right? That's why he made not the horrible people.
Hateful Eight. Yeah.
The Bad Six.
the terrifying Nine.
Yeah. I'm not making fun of the movie. I'm making fun of myself for not remembering it. It even rhymes and I couldn't get there. Oh well.
You're good. The Sinister Seven.
But yeah, I think you're right that it's being up and coming filmmakers in 2009. You probably don't get to do a thing like that,
and you also don't have the USC like the new new Hollywood schooling that Carpenter had, right? Like,
yeah.
Like he talks a lot about like Howard Hawks and Hitchcock and Orson Welles coming and lecturing at his classes. You know, like, I don't know where these dudes came from, but like, you know, you even see it today with like Ari Aster went to a film school that was more similar to what Carpenter went through. But this is like, you know, they're making a movie in 2009, clearly influenced by movies in the 90s, whether it's like, I don't know, like I imagine they were into The Crow or like the Blade movie, which is a 90s, you know, vampire movie. And I don't know much about them, but I could totally see that. Even Gattaca, right? Like, the Ethan Hawke Desire, like Gattaca's a sci-fi movie. This I would argue is more sci-fi than horror. In many ways, it's like a sci-fi action horror movie.
Yeah, it is,
then I mean, I'm not like,
there's a lot of lab coats and microscopes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of action, not so much like terror.
Yeah. Very little terror.
I mean, it's like intellectual terror, right? Like, what if the world were like this?
Yeah. Yes.
And then it's
the ramifications are
like
terrifying.
this.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a big reading year for me, and that's the stupidest thing I've ever said.
No, it's not.
In catching up on books that are mostly satirically about that kind of thing that most people read in high school, but for some reason I didn't read at my high school.
Postmodern things.
Yeah, it's been big on catching up. Well, so I read White Noise for the first time this year, but that, like, I'd never read 1984 or Fahrenheit 451 before. Okay. So stuff like that. That's just about,
dystopian stuff.
Yeah, dystopian stuff. That is a lot about, I guess, those censorship too. But yeah, White Noise is so good. But,
so good. Have you seen the movie?
I watched the first couple minutes and bounced right off of it. I was like, I can't do this. So much of that book is so perfectly internal that it's I don't envy Noah Baumbach trying to turn it into dialogue.
I don't know why he tried to turn it into a movie, but he kind of butchered the ending.
Did he?
Do you want me to give it away? Do you do spoiler alerts? I mean, this whole podcast is kind of spoiler heavy.
It's what, a 3-year-old movie that no one really liked.
True. He turns the ending into like this musical supermarket sequence.
Oh, I've heard people are mad that they dance at the end. I thought it was just like over the credits.
It's fucking stupid. It is over the credits, but it's also like part of the
narrative
diegesis, sort of. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of, I'm like, yeah, no baby crying crossing the throughway. You know, you just kind of have like fucking we're gonna dance in the supermarket.
They take that out?
Like we're in Fantastic Mr. Fox. They take it out.
Oh, that's
it's like the best
important.
Yeah, it's super important. They just kind of do like a Fantastic Mr. Fox ending. It's like
that works in stop motion.
It works very well in stop motion for a kids movie.
Especially,
not so much in white noise.
Especially when the characters have been trying to find a reliable source of food for the movie.
Yeah.
And it also undercuts the problem with like the economy that they, and the farmers who aren't sharing their goods.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, no, it makes sense there.
But it was a very weird ending. I didn't hate the movie. I mean, he did as well as he could have done to stay faithful to as much as he could have.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a movie in the least.
Nope.
Because it's a very...
That was the problem for me. It's just like, oh my God, they're saying all these internal thoughts out loud and it sounds dumb when you say them out loud.
Yeah.
And they were too expressive.
And it's so fun.
I don't know. Maybe it changes over time.
It's so fun to read the book.
Yeah.
That it's not fun to watch the movie. No. Like it doesn't equate.
Oh man. I think this is my brain's fault. I'm trying to remember where we even jumped off of.
You were talking about kind of like big reading year, reading dystopian things.
Yes.
And because we were talking about the kind of horrific ramifications of Daybreakers worlds.
Yeah.
That's where the horror lies in Daybreakers.
My whole point was like, I've been reading like the totemic texts that inform that style of, building a narrative. And they almost get there here, but they're adding a lot of different stuff to the stew and they just keep adding, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure. And I almost thought for a second that they were going to go the 1984 route and kind of like make it a romance sort of situation.
Yes.
And they don't.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate in some ways, but then again, I'm like, I think they got caught up in their own, like, we need to resolve the movie.
Yeah.
And so we haven't even talked about the fucking, wine experiment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I haven't talked about that. We've barely talked about Sam Neill.
We haven't talked. We'll get to Sam Neill. Okay. There's things to talk about with Sam Neill.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we haven't talked about, how the cure comes about, which, as you pointed out, is not really science.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like Elvis welds a window onto a big fermenter.
Yeah, yeah, because they're at the vineyard.
They're at the vineyard, yeah.
Where they later hide in that cask.
Yep.
And they put a heart monitor on Ethan Hawke, Ed, and Audrey is monitoring whether or not he gains a heartbeat from this.
Yeah. And
they just sort of, the thing that you're supposed to do if you have to like run through a burning building, they just kind of make him wet.
Yes.
And
they put a big wet blanket over him.
Yeah. And then they open the hatch on the fermenter and let him, get hit with sunlight for a bit. And it's like they're trying to, whatever. Oh God, I forgot what it was.
Doing like the defibrillator.
Defibrillator him back to life or whatever. It's
yeah, for sure.
But that's that's sort of the amount of time. He sort of opens it, couple seconds closes it.
And then the oxygen sucked out of it.
Yeah.
So that like the fire stops.
Yeah, no, he's thought it out.
Third time's a charm.
Yep.
Goes through it. There's some...
It's not that hard.
Cross-cutting. Yeah. There's some cross-cutting kind of melodrama with the army coming to kind of like raid the winery or the vineyard while they're doing this. And it's a race against time.
Yeah.
So a lot of suspense.
But, spoiler alert, Ed survives it. Becomes human. Yeah. Yeah. Survives in multiple ways, in a way in which he can die now. The way his brother ends up being cured is, it turns out that, you said this already in the recap, cured vampire, now human blood, if drank by vampire, turn them human.
Yes. Post-vampire human blood is the cure for pre-vampire or pre-human vampire blood.
Yep.
So if a vampire attacks a turned vampire, then they will then turn human, back to human.
Yeah. The vampires in this movie are full of blood, which isn't always the case in vampire fiction. I was surprised when the subsider that first, I guess, breaks into his apartment is sort of just there. You don't hear it like open the door even.
Yeah, he kind of just pops out of the darkness in the corner.
Why was that hallway so dark? There was a whole person there. They were mad.
Yeah.
But then when they cut that guy up, he gets real bloody. It's like, oh, I guess these vampires have blood.
And he just like cuts his stomach open and then cuts his head off, and it's like he's dead.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
And right, yeah. And that leads to, I guess they have to have blood because the whole thing is if you feed on other vampire blood, then you go kind of feral, just like you had been starved. Sort of.
Well, if you feed on your own blood, it expedites the feraling process. Is feraling a word?
Yeah, the feralizing. The feralizing, yeah.
The feralizing.
Yeah.
That should have been the name of this movie.
The feralizing. You get it. It would be great SEO. No one else is naming anything that.
But that's kind of like honestly the only jump scare in the movie.
Yeah.
It really
is.
And the introduction to, we just see pictures before of the subsider, kind of Nosferatu-esque vampire, bat-like vampire. I thought that I was really excited to see more of them. Yeah. And you don't.
No, you get some like wide shots of the underground.
Yeah, like when the camera pans up to the city and then you see the subground and you see them kind of like, bickering with each other underground.
And there's a really quick sequence that I thought I was paying good attention, but I kind of couldn't place it when you were going back through the recap of when this happened, that all of a sudden these corporation government agencies or whatever, they decide there's like news reports about like, oh, there's a subsider issue. It's getting worse.
There's like an epidemic of subsiders.
Yeah. And they gather them all up, and then much like James Woods' chain winch system of dragging vampires out into the sun from his car, they just tie them all to a big tank and make them walk out in the sun.
Yeah. Including Bromley/Sam Neill doing so with his own daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like she was going to be a more important character.
I also just wouldn't you just put an IV of human blood into your daughter? It's like, okay, she's in her cell and she won't drink the human blood and she's like drinking her own blood. And he checks on her and he's like, honey, don't do that. That's bad for you. But wouldn't you just hook a little IV bag up to her and give that direct line?
Probably would try.
Yeah, I mean, I would think I would try if
I'd probably try.
If you go through the lengths of recovering your daughter that ran away and then turning her to a vampire, wouldn't you do everything? Presumably, in order to help her live forever. Yeah. Wouldn't you then do everything in your power to not make her this feral subsider?
It seemed to be a years-long goal for him to do that, and then he was just like, "Well, never mind. Guess it didn't work exactly like I hoped."
Yeah, and
Time to kill her forever.
Which is why she seems like she would be a more important character than she was.
Yes, it's his whole backstory as the main villain of the film.
Yeah, and that and I guess the point is they do it to their own, right? But there's a lot of Sam Neill looking at pictures of his daughter. When you're introduced to his character, that's what Ed and him talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of build up. His daughter, and she's part of the caravan that is ambushed, and then maybe has 2 more sequences before she's feral.
Yeah, she doesn't have a lot of lines in this movie.
No, and and going back to the introduction of the show, and Sam Neill, I thought he was great in this, but there wasn't much substance other. This is the bad president, CEO guy.
I've been thinking about Twin Peaks a lot lately. So to me, it read as they could have gotten Ray Wise to do this role and just do his Ray Wise thing.
Yeah, totally.
It's just that's a guy who just picture a character actor who usually plays the devil. That's him.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's not a lot of nuance to what Sam Neill's doing.
No, and at the same time, he's kind of got this fatherly vibe towards Ethan Hawke /Ed. but there's not like he's just the bad, right? Like he doesn't
it's
have
a bit
much,
underdeveloped.
Yeah, and
but there's not really room for him.
No, which is why, like your point, like a character actor might be better fit for that.
Yeah, it's I was already thinking ahead to the monthly question that's related to Sam Neill, but we'll get there later. I think it's weird because it's like, there wasn't time. There wasn't time to develop him. We had to do all this other stuff. But like, well, let's cut the other stuff out. It's like, well, this movie was, then it would be like under 80 minutes if we cut out any of the big plots. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the fault of the movie, right? Because we could go back and forth about what we would have done.
Yeah.
And what we could have done, what the movie could have done.
I think even if it's 2 hours and 10 minutes long, I don't think it fits all of this well in it.
Like, I think they did a good job on building the world, showing it, and then they kind of abandoned it because they needed a cure. They needed a blood alternative, or they needed a blood alternative, and then it turned into, well, why don't we just have a cure? And it's like, did you think everybody was going to be like, yeah, I don't want to be a vampire anymore? Like, everybody seems content being a vampire. They just kind of want blood.
They treat that as a, not necessarily a twist, but like there's sort of in the climactic showdown where Sam Neill's like, this was never about finding a cure because this isn't a disease or whatever. It's like, basically like, because I'm cool with this. And he's like, yeah. If he turns back human, he has cancer again.
And he's gonna die, and like he doesn't have control because he owns like he's in control of the main resource that these individuals need to survive and subside.
He's good. Like the people making those decisions on whether or not the cure successfully gets rolled out, like they're the ones who stand to benefit the most if it doesn't.
Yeah. So. A bit of naivete on Ethan Hawke's character's part. Yeah, I think limits the movie a bit.
To the extent that when that turn happens, I was like, was that supposed to be a surprise to that character? It's like, oh, I guess it was. Is this guy dumb? You know where you work, buddy.
Yeah, you work. You've
been looking around horrified as you walk to your office.
You're the GMO scientist, dude. Like you're working for Monsanto, figuring out how to genetically modify the seeds so that they're only
for sure
they're only able to be planted in Monsanto owned farms or some shit.
Yeah,
whatever. You get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
Corporations are bad.
They're bad. That's sort of what the messaging boils down to.
Yeah, go walk in the sun while you can.
It's pretty explicit Holocaust imagery that they dip into for a bit there, and I don't think they earn it.
What? So, okay,
maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, but it speaks to like there's a lot of possibilities for what they could.
Well, I think they're definitely the idea of the extinction, like that's Ethan Hawke's rub, right? Like he doesn't want the human race to be extinct or genocide against humans.
Yeah.
But he's also like stupid enough to like you work for the corporation that is actively, responsible for the genocide that you're so upset about.
Right. Yeah. So he's the real problem. But he gets better, sort of unintentionally. He kind of accidentally becomes the hero of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense. He's also sort of the audience proxy that's sort of reacting to stuff and is sort of like, I don't know if that's right.
Yeah.
For the first 20 minutes of the movie or whatever.
Yeah.
He's raising his eyebrows at a lot of stuff. It's on the poster, at least the one that pops up on, I think, Letterboxd and Wikipedia for this movie. But it's one of those things that I wonder if they started with this image in mind and kind of worked backwards. But the human battery and Matrix style, like blood pumping thing that they have all the humans hooked up to. It's creepy.
It is creepy. Yeah.
Good.
And that, that is the most Sam Neill acting that he does is like watching that.
Yeah.
The little human hive sort of thing. Yeah. Like that's the most like expressive that he gets. That's not just like character actor.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to read his face and understand is he conflicted by it? Is he just worried about the supply running out?
Yeah.
That's like where the nuance of his character comes in, if there is, much.
Yeah.
What's the Sam Neill question for this month? Can we get to that?
I will do ratings first.
Okay.
If you're ready for ratings.
Yeah.
On a scale of 0.5 to 5, on any scale of your choosing aside from stars, what would you give the Spierig Brothers? I checked 2009 was the TIFF release, but the wide release was 2010. So I'll correct that. What would you give the 2010 film? I was thinking of other descriptors, whatever. Daybreakers.
I give 3 trank darts out of 5.
Giant trank darts. Somebody like scribbled on in Adobe Photoshop and move it like a different frame rate. And,
yeah.
Yeah. What's an object in this movie? I don't know. The creatures were designed by Weta, who we talked about when we did Lord of the Rings, like 2 years ago.
Interesting.
So I will give.
There's a lot of orc in them.
There is, actually, there's a ton of orc in them.
Yeah.
They probably just recycled old
I wouldn't be
stuff.
surprised, yeah.
It's less than a decade
If it ain't
later,
broke,
like,
don't fix it.
Exactly. Well, it still applies. I'll give this 3 out of 5 surprisingly well-designed monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. It's good stuff. The Sam Neill question of the Sam Neilloween month. Again, every movie is starring Sam Neill this month. It's been pretty universal so far, but let's see. Would you want to hang out with this version of Sam Neill?
No.
No, he's sort of 0 for 3 on the new episodes. The episode I re-released, which thank God I did, because I feel like it at least gives a different flavor, was Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't record that this month, so that question wasn't asked then. But we all would have hung out with that one. This one...
And then you did Possession.
Possession and Event Horizon. I think Event Horizon Sam Neill still lasts because he really does just want to kill everyone.
Yeah.
Possession.
I'd want to hang out with Event Horizon Sam Neill.
You think?
Yeah. Not more than Possession Sam Neill.
Yeah. I struggle to rank these Sam Neill hangs. Depends.
I would love to hang out with Sam Neill in real life.
Yeah, he's a Vinter now.
He's a what? Sorry?
He's a Vinter.
Yeah.
He has his own
wine. He has his own wine.
Yeah.
He seems like a lovely guy. His Instagram's great.
Yeah.
He seemed his Mark Maron interview was awesome. I don't know if you've listened to that.
I haven't. I want to now. That feels like a great thing to do for Sam Neill.
It's really good. He's really like, he just is a real down to earth person.
Yeah. In case it's ever seems, and I think I've stated this on every episode, but haven't yet. I think Sam Neill's an incredibly underrated actor that has a tendency to fully commit to some wild shit. So
yeah,
that was the kernel of the idea for this month. And this one, he doesn't have to do as much wild shit, but he does fully commit to it.
He does. Yeah.
I don't love the vampire eyes in this movie.
No.
I think it makes Ethan Hawke look surprised all the time. It doesn't have that effect on everyone, but on Ethan Hawke, he always looks surprised, and it makes him seem a little dumb.
I mean, young Ethan Hawke does seem a lot of. He's really become wiser with his old age as an actor. But young Ethan Hawke, and I would still put this as like this is the brink of Ethan Hawke aging.
Yeah.
But young Ethan Hawke is he's pretty dumb looking.
Yeah, this is actually the latest Ethan Hawke movie we've done so far.
Oh wow. Okay.
Because we did, and this was my joke option, but then I wanted to talk about the Weta stuff, was going to be 3.5 out of 5 movies that should have been called Before Sunrise. So we've done Before Sunrise, and we did
this movie should have been called Before
Sunrise.
This movie
should have been called Before Sunrise.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It just makes sense. God, how many like low budget vampire movie makers are just so mad at Richard Linklater for stealing that?
Yeah, very.
And Dead Poets Society are the other Ethan Hawke, so only younger so far.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm forgetting one, but that's all that comes to mind.
But yeah,
very different movies.
Very different. It's got good range, that Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, I like him a lot as an actor. And we mentioned before, he's definitely doing more genre stuff. This is 2010, which I think Sinister's not too far after this. Black Phone's more recently too. And
Yeah.
a bunch of other stuff.
He's really good in Sinister.
Yeah, that's next on my spooky season list.
Have you seen Sinister?
I haven't yet, but I know a lot about it and the stuff that goes on in it.
Yeah, I saw.
That's like all those 2010s to 2018-ish horror movies that I feel like I know a lot about, but haven't watched.
I watched it after watching the History of Horror show that was on, where somebody was like, "This doesn't have any business being as scary as it is for a studio movie," and I'd agree. It's a creepy movie.
Yeah,
Sinister.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. It's good. There's a YouTube channel I watch that, not because they didn't like Sinister, but just they refer to like anytime a creepy thing pops up as a bagul.
It's good.
It's like, oh, there was a bagul here, and yeah, it's, it's a good bit, and that's like most of my basis of knowledge for Sinister.
Yeah,
and obviously when the long-awaited Sinister Insidious crossover happens, I'll be in the theater on opening night. Yeah, can't wait. I think that just about wraps us up. I think I might have gone over time for you, Sarah.
that's okay.
Thanks so much for being here, Patrick. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time.
Yeah.
This
Always
is the most social interaction I've had with somebody who speaks
glad to hear
other than my wife in a long time. So
glad to hear it. And I hope you have a great Sam Neilloween. We'll be back next week with In the Mouth of Madness.
Ooh, great one.
Really excited for that one.
Happy
Building
Halloween.
up to it,
Yeah, happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah, happy Sam Neilloween.